One of the definitions of irony I found from the Oxford Languages site is a literary technique originally used in Greek tragedy by which full significance of a character's words or actions are clear to the audience or reader, although unknown to the character. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Tilting with Tuples. My name is Louis Davidson. I'll be your host tonight. And I want to talk a little bit about marketing myself. Ugh. It's terrifying, honestly. Like, I've been something of an influencer for years. I was a Dollywood insider for a while, for a year. And when I was applying to be a Dollywood insider, which was one of their social media kind of people, we wrote blogs and they posted on their sites. It wasn't paid. We got tickets. It was a really great time. Met some really great people I'm still friends with. But when I was doing my application, I said this one thing that I think is so true when I'm doing influencer type work. And that is, I know I am not the product. The park is. And you can fill in anything for the park. As a Microsoft MVP, I always knew the focus was going to be on the products. I came second. I was not there to say, hey, Louis. I was there to say SQL Server is awesome. And if my personality, my whatever, appealed to people that were listening to it, that was awesome. Right? I'm not at all against that. But, I came second. So that definition of irony really resonates with me because I, as a character, not to realize too much that I am a product. Okay. I know that. And as a person who needs a job sometimes, right? You're a product. When you go to apply for a job, you are a product. You have to sell yourself. And I really hate that. I really don't like that thought of having to say, I'm great. Look at me. I'm good. I'm great. I'm awesome. Let me tell you how awesome I am. Let me tell you how awesome I am. Right? I hate that because I'm not as awesome as I would want to say. I need to say when you're doing a resume. You don't go, well, here, let me tell you all my faults. Because in some respects, some of my faults are what make me good at things. You can't sell it that way. And I've got one more episode that I'm planning that I'm going to talk about that, where one of my weaknesses that I use as a strength. But today I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because, that's how it works. So there's this thing people talk about called imposter syndrome. I am not a big fan of this term. I'm not against, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying people have this feeling. I don't like the term because I'll tell you why. Again, defined by Oxford Languages site, because Google keeps sending me to it, and I like the definition I saw. It says the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. The fact is, I think pretty much all of us who try to, talk about a product or are imposters. I didn't build the product. I don't know enough. I didn't build Disney World. I didn't build Dollywood. I just take pictures of it, and I'm not the best photographer. I just happen to snap some good pictures and I post them. And sometimes they're whoa, and most of the time they're, hey, that's a memory. Why do I think everybody's an imposter? It's because, we didn't come up with any of these things we're talking about. We're putting it out in a way that hopefully resonates with people, and we're telling people about it. And so I can't get my personal self wrapped up into that because that's not what I am. When I'm trying to be an influencer type, I'm not trying to become, an advertisement. I have some really fun ideas for some advertisements for the thing I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But I don't think, I say that I'm going to talk about it a little bit. The thing I'm going to talk about, I have a blog that I'm posting back in September for this, that to announce this and talk about it. This is the blog. I'm reading it off right now. I'm vamping from it, but I'm certainly not telling you anything new right here. By now, I hopefully am telling you, wow, it's going great, and there's a reason to keep going. But I've learned that a little bit during some of my travels and work. Some people are good at marketing things. Some people are good at selling things, They're not necessarily the people who are good at using the products that they're selling. And that is completely okay because everybody has their own set of skills. Well, I have database skills. I have the skills to write SQL, data model, things like that. My skills are not as good as some other people's skills. I'm probably, I'm, I don't like ranking myself. And ranking yourself comes along with some of the territory of marketing yourself. And that's where it gets really hard for me. I don't think my achievements are not legit. I think I worked for them. I think I do the work. I've done the work. Let's just say that I've done the work, but I don't really feel like I deserve any special success or even success because there are far smarter people. And I think we all deserve a modicum of success, but I don't think there's anyone who's, that much better, that much more interesting. I mean, there's a few people there are a few people you can really tell are just like, I feel them in the room, right? For the most part, we're just out here trying to tell you about some product we love. I love SQL Server. I love Walt Disney World. I love Dollywood. I like to take pictures of some of those. I like to talk about them. I like to blog about them. I like to make podcasts about them. Okay. But I've never had I didn't come up with relational databases whatsoever. I've really only had one personal idea that was my idea, and I've never seen anybody else do it. And it was a way to move back and forth in time and the data dimension. It's not really caught on but it's there. It's something I came up with and a technique that worked. But that's the thing. I didn't come up with anything. I didn't come up with any of these ideas. COD came up with relational databases. There's far more smart people like Fabian Pascal, CJ Date. Those are the names I know. And there's far more people. Like there's a lot of people who have PhDs. I know my handle is DRSQL, Dr. SQL. I am not a doctor. I don't have a master's degree. I barely had an undergraduate degree. Squeaked through on that. Because I'm not an academic, not one bit academic. If you read my books, which I've written quite a few, I've done things, but none of them are my initial thought. They're more like taking other people's thoughts and turning them into something that is for people like me that are not academics, but we like to do things right. So yeah, well, no, I'm not the best in the world. I feel less like an imposter and I feel more like just average, like basic average. So why am I saying this? What's the whole point here? That's a good question. I'll answer that. Thank you for asking, Louis. The main reason for this episode is just to say this. Why do I do this? Like, I'm not the most fit person. I'm going to tell you a little story about something I did physically, but I'm not the most fit person. Amongst people my size, perhaps I used to be very, very active, right? I was once close to half a thousand. I was closing in on 500 pounds at one time, but I was still active. And that's part of the problems I've had in my life. I've lost quite a bit since then. I'm working on it again. That's not the point. But in terms of activity, I was in the upper echelon of people of that size. That took a wear and tear on me. And, my body is, I've beat myself up. I'm going to keep beating myself up. I continue to keep it up. But I had a congenital hip defect, and that led to some rough times. So a few years ago, it could even be 10 years ago, I had just barely recovered from one of my hip replacements, and I was finally ready to get out and do some hiking. I was like, I'm ready. I can go do it. I can get out in the woods. I was hiking by myself. It was a simple trail. It wasn't like anything major. Just a few miles round trip. And I'm almost to the place. It's a waterfall. It's in the Cherokee National Forest. It's the Chilhowie area. There's just falls up there. And I loved going there. I haven't been there in a while because, again, I've had more hip replacements since the last time I did there. But as I was walking, I was walking about this. I was getting close to the waterfall, and I was struggling hard. You could see I was just, I was just pushing, gonna do this. I had to climb over some things. At a certain point, climbing over things is terrifying. But I wasn't giving up. And as I was doing this, another group came down the path, the opposite direction, with another person struggling. And this person saw me and said, I didn't know, I don't know if I can make it, but you know what? He can do it. And I was never quite sure if that was a compliment or a dig, but they didn't realize my position in life. They didn't know what I was at. They just knew there was this person walking down a path looking like they were going to die. And realized that if, I could do it, they could do it. And I've used that philosophy many times. Like when I speak at a conference, I try to make sure everybody knows that if I can do it, you can do it. Because I started out terrified. There was a while I had to take some meds not to freak out on the stage. And I still don't even love it. I love part of it. I don't, when I get up on the stage and I start to talk, I'm freaked, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. Eventually, once I start talking, I get into it and it's okay because I have worked on it for many years, but it was never an easy thing. I lived in fear that at my last job, I was going to have to do a keynote. And I say that I live in fear. Well, okay, let me qualify that. I lived in fear I was going to have to do a keynote where I had to follow a script. I've written a script. There's a script on my screen right now that I am not following whatsoever. And while I loosely follow the script, I don't follow the script. And I've seen some people who are on stage doing this and they're reading their script, and I feel so bad for them because I know how I would feel if I was up there and I needed to say the things I said. I'm just going woo, woo, all over the place. I do have plans. I would love to do a keynote. Once I'm done with this series of podcast recordings, I'm going to do a keynote presentation recording in my house by myself of how I would do it if I was going to do it. I gotta do some graphics and things like that. So it's going to take a while. I haven't gotten myself to that point. Writing blogs and podcasts and, daytime job and things are kind of enough. But, so I never knew if that was a compliment or a dig, but I will say this. I assume that person made it back because I did not have to step over any corpses on the way back to that trip. I never died presenting, and I made it back. I've gone hiking many times. I've always made it back. Sometimes it didn't feel that way. Sometimes when I was standing in front of a group, it didn't feel like I was going to survive the entire day, but it did. So this is the 8th episode I'm recording, and I have not put out one yet. And why is that? Well, it's because I'm afraid that it's going to bomb. I'm not going to get any views. No one's going to listen. I get sued because someone has copyrighted the term tuple as well as data quality, and I'm in trouble. Okay, those kind of delusions aside, which I will say, to be honest, I do have. I see all the angles, but that's not the point. To put all those delusions aside, I'm getting close to putting these out. At the end of 11, I promised myself I made a 0 episode and I was going to put out 10. And I really now have to start thinking about what I have to do next. And what I have to do next is while these things are going out, I have to market them. I need to tell people about it. I need to find a way that people can discover these. And yes, someone may be going on their podcast app and looking at what do you have anything about tuples or tuples? What about the difference between tuples? I don't know how people find things on podcasts. I don't know how people find podcasts. I just know I put stuff on YouTube usually, my Disney stuff, and people find it because people like Disney. I'll probably hashtag SQL Server in here somehow. I don't know. I don't know how that works. We'll get there. That's next. My wife actually does that for her podcast more than I do. So marketing. So oddly enough, I have really only pretty much worked in marketing for 30 years. And other than, my working in the community and MVP stuff, most of my work has been in support of marketing efforts. I've not been the person being marketed or marketing something. I see how marketing works. And it's a great place to be because your work tells people how their work is going. The data you work with isn't critical, in the way in medical records. I accidentally give someone 2 doses of some medicine and they die. That's my database design. Nope. But if you miscount marketing stuff, you just fix it, right? Nobody's hurt from that. But it's also critical. Knowing that the marketing you're doing is actually doing something and bringing in money and what can do, what can't do. And then, what works and doesn't work is fantastic. It's exciting stuff. When you see something, it's exciting stuff. So this whole podcast thing, preparing to do this, trying to put this out, is really nerve-wracking because I'm doing this alone this time. I don't have a guest. Last time I had a guest, I could stand behind the guest. It didn't do well. It is the guest. The guest wasn't. It's the guest's fault, right? No, it probably wasn't the guest's fault. It was my fault for not leading the guest if it didn't do well. But you can have the more you have, the more things you are working with, the more layers there are. I'm working for a company doing this. I'm working for this. There's layers you can blame. I'm sitting here right now talking to this purple microphone, and I'm representing myself. Everything I'm saying is about me. And I'm not doing this for any specific reason except that I want to share my knowledge and maybe a little ego. I don't know. But thinking back to the irony part that I kicked off the show, I have to be careful not to let the Louis character know what I'm planning. I have to get Louis, the person who's sitting here talking to you, to just forget about the fact that nobody may listen. I may offend somebody, all the things that are possible. I have to keep that in mind. I have to know that the Louis character, that to me, the person running this will do the things that it needs to do. But when I'm here in front of the microphone, when I'm writing my blogs, when I'm writing my script, which also become blogs, because you never waste words. Okay, that's another writing. I'm going to do a series of presentations on writing tips, and one of those will be, don't waste words. Repackage it. There's a Who song. I write the same old songs with a few new lines, and everybody wants to hear it. That's so very true. I think there's only one technical blog been written, and we all just add a few things to it. But I have to market myself. I have to say, this is me. I have to make it feel like this is a real me. And it is. I'm not really faking. I'm not playing a character here. I am playing myself, talking to myself. And the one thing you have to know about me is I love data quality more than I love theme parks. And I spend about a month every year at a theme park, be it Dollywood for 12 days a year, Disney. Okay, I spend a little more than a month. This is embarrassing, but I spend more than a month there. And I would give that all up just to have a perfect stream of data coming in from the customer system that then goes into a system that can then be reported on without any ridiculous guessing transformations. This was done. This was changed. This happened. And then we put it in, we connected the things and we put it to the customer and they said, I see what's happening. Perfect. No, I know maybe some people, I don't know. The people I've talked to feel the same way I do. So I don't think I'm alone here. Maybe I am, but it's always tough. There's always data that's complicated because the world's complicated. Life is complicated. So that's how much I love it. Perfect data, better than theme parks. And thank goodness I don't have to actually make that decision because, I'd have to talk to myself. So I'm going to say, I'm going to believe this when I say it. Whether I like the imposter name or not, I'm still not sure. I have plans for commercials. I have a commercial I have planned to kick off the show, which I really love the concept of. I have another couple of ideas of little concepts that I think will be fun. I plan to put videos on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. I just have to make myself do it. I have to get out of that planning stage, get out of that, what are these people thinking, and do it. So if you're watching this right now, I'm amazed. I actually posted it. I actually did it. I put the video out. This is fun to record. I'm sitting here staring at myself. I hate looking at myself. I hate hearing myself, but it's still fun. Still absolutely fun ranting about things that I love to do. But as much fun as that is, I still think, why is anybody listening to me? Why will anybody listen to my commercials? Why won't people just block me? I don't know. In my head, I don't know. But that's the final thing. The final point here is that once I realize that the worst thing that happens when I market myself, when I talk about things, when I put myself out there, the worst thing that happens is nothing. Nothing. Then I can go and do it. And I can let go of some of the anguish, just press schedule for the episode. Just like I'm going to press stop on the recording right now and go watch some TV and figure out how I'm going to market myself. All right. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this meant something to you. I hope for anyone struggling to get themselves to do some things because you're afraid of what people are going to say, forget it. Enjoy it. Just do it. Just do it. If you don't want to do it, if you don't want to blog, you don't want to podcast, you don't want to record videos, you don't want to do any of that, and you think you would hate it, or you actually do hate it, don't do it. Right? Don't listen to someone who's going, you should definitely do this. If you're going to hate it, if you're not good, you really hate it. But I'm going to tell you, if you haven't tried it, you don't know if you'll hate it or not. I did not start out to be a speaker. I did not start out to be a podcaster. I started out to be someone sitting in a corner. My first conference I went to, I did not meet a single soul. Second one, very few. And then I started making connections and learn how to participate, contribute, and ingest information from others. So have a good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at, and I'll talk to you next time.